The Leviathan, the largest living land animal of Kenshi. It carries around its precious pearl while it grazes in peace.
Yeah, those pearls are worth a lot. So let's get hunting. Today we attempt to become the biggest Leviathan slayer known to mankind. Meet Pearly, a hiver prince raised by poachers. Unfortunately, they got caught poaching, and just before they were brutally slaughtered, Pearly swore to his family that he'd continue their poaching legacy and become the biggest Leviathan slayer of all time. He needed to find a group of like-minded individuals and travel to the Leviathan coast, where there are many Leviathans aplenty. Will he be able to become the biggest Leviathan slayer of all time? Or will he get crushed by their tons of sheer power? Let's find out. First, he needed to escape the Reaver slave camp he was in. Pearly had been sold from slaver to slaver, eventually ending up in the Reaver slave camp. Fortunately for Pearly, the Reavers were not the smartest tools in the shed, and they took their slaves on regular dog walks. During one of these walks, the group Pearly was in got attacked by grass pirates, and with the Reavers distracted, Pearly managed to escape his captors. Tired and hungry, Pearly was free, but far from safe. Having his feet shackled, he was still looking like a slave and would surely be recognized by the Reavers. He needed to find a place where he could stay, a town or a city where he would be able to wash off his slave identity and prepare for his journey to the Leviathan coast. Unfortunately for Pearly, the world of Kenshi isn't so nice to you. The first village Pearly got to turned out to be run by the United Cities, the biggest slaver community in all of Kenshi.
Run.
The second village he came across was filled by cultists, and they seemed nice. Okay, never mind. There was one last big city in the area, and hesitantly, Pearly approached it. Fortunately for him, the inhabitants of Black Scratch were tech hunters, who don't really care about who you are. Pearly entered Black Scratch and finally felt safe. Here he had time to prepare for his journey ahead. While mining just outside Black Scratch for a bit of money, they were attacked by the very same group of Reavers Pearly was a part of. After watching them get decimated by the town guards, he looted their bodies, sold everything to the local stores, and only kept a crossbow for himself. After that, he picked up a dead body and dragged it around the city to increase his strength, which he would need for the upcoming trip. Pearly had a full belly, a bit of money in his pockets, and unlocked full drip. He was now ready to travel to the Leviathan coast, ready to make his family proud. He checked the local bars for anyone willing to join him, but alas, there were only expensive mercenaries available. He had to travel to the coast all by himself. With renewed courage, he started his journey through the dangerous deserts, leaving behind Black Scratch and his slave history. He started running through the different deserts and biomes. He encountered villages, strange anomalies, hostile slave camps, vast open deserts, and friendly outposts where he was able to catch a breath and buy some more supplies, and his sick-looking backpack, which he had to throw away again just a day later to be able to escape a group of blood raiders. What a waste. After escaping the blood raiders, he had to face off against a lone bone dog. Fortunately, he got a help from a crippled wandering monk, and they managed to kill the bone dog. However, unfortunately for the crippled monk, he was easy prey for Pearly. I tell you what, boys. In the desert, it's eat or be eaten. Check out my new hat! After a few days of nothing but sandy deserts, Pearly finally caught a glimpse of civilization. He approached the town. It seemed like a peaceful place. However, many things are not what they seem. The town was controlled by the Holy Nation, a federation of racist zealots who only allowed a human race to live. After barely escaping the Holy Nation guards, Pearly noticed some buildings in a nearby mountain. Upon closer inspection, it appeared to be another tech hunter city, called World's End. Upon entering the town, Pearly couldn't believe his eyes. About half of the buildings were bars. Aside from the great parties, these bars house a lot of potential allies. So Pearly started mining at a nearby deposit, and after 4 days of swinging his pickaxe and selling the ores, he was able to recruit Ned and Stone. Together, they would travel northward through the treacherous cannibal plains to the Leviathan coast, in search for a town to launch their Leviathan hunting operation from. After barely dodging groups of cannibals, fighting some off and plundering an uninhabited town, whose residents probably also face some kind of cannibal problem, our fresh team of Leviathan hunters neared the Leviathan coast. And there, on the horizon, Pearly got his first ever glimpse of one of these magnificent creatures. They were absolute units. Pearly felt an unstoppable urge within him. His inner poacher was rekindled. He'd love to run up to it and yank out his heart straight away and make his family proud. But doing this would mean the group's certain death. He had to restrain himself. First, they had to find a city in the Leviathan coast where they could recuperate, prepare and start the Leviathan hunt from. However, Pearly and his crew quickly found out that there's no cities in the Leviathan coast. It's only filled with wildlife, wild garu and the incredibly dangerous beak things. When this dawned on him, Pearly could no longer resist his urge to kill. They found a lone Leviathan and he ordered Nat and Stone to stay back as he cocked his crossbow. He held his breath and carefully took the first shot. And that was when shit hit the fan. Only now he realized that his crossbow had no chance of dealing any serious damage to the creature, it having thousands upon thousands of hit points per limb. In an act of sheer panic, Pearly took another shot at the beast, and before he could warn Nat and Stone, it was already too late. They rushed in to help Pearly, swinging their swords at the Leviathan. The beast reacted with an attack of its own, striking down with its head, killing and dismembering both Nat and Stone in a single blow. Having witnessed this immense display of power, Pearly turned around on his heels and ran. He ran like he never ran before, too afraid to look back at the bodies of Nat and Stone. He kept running and running until he eventually got back at World's End. He was lost. For days, he only left the bars in World's End because he was kicked out for being too drunk. He slept off his drunkenness and got into another bar as soon as he woke up. He couldn't get the image of the Leviathan brutally dismembering and killing Nat and Stone from his retina. What would his family think of him? He was a disgrace, a failure, not even able to do the one thing that he was educated to do. Pearly had already given up and accepted the fact that he'd spend the rest of his life here in World's End, drinking away his misery. Until one morning, Pearly woke up like he did so many mornings on end, in a bed in one of the bars, hungover and feeling like shit. He peeked out of the window, reliving what had happened once again, and suddenly it hit him. The answer to be able to successfully hunt the Leviathans was right in front of him. Buildings. Yes, buildings. If he would be able to build a tower in the Leviathan coast, which they couldn't reach, and fill it up with hunters manning turrets, they might be able to take one of the beasts down. But this was going to be a heck of a challenge. He would need to research how to make buildings and how to make turrets. He would need a training facility to train his team of hunters. He needed a lot of money to fund all of this, and he knew exactly where to find that. Barely sober, Pearly packed his stuff and started running, all the way back to Black Scratch. And within a few days of non-stop running, he was back at Black Scratch, which strangely felt like home. Immediately after entering the city, Pearly crouched and activated stealth. He walked around the city streets for days on end to train it. Pearly now used his newly found stealth abilities to collect valuable beak things eggs in Gut, a dangerous area guarded by these deadly creatures. All in stealth, he successfully gathered 3 eggs worth 4,200 cats each, escaping unharmed and recruiting Babark to carry even more eggs and make the operation way more efficient, eventually earning a 100k profit. Pearly spent the first bit of money on an amazing hat, a researcher called Izumi and 2 engineers, Jensei and Thanaton. Together they traveled back all the way to World's End again, where the training was ready to start. Pearly bought a house big enough to fit the proper research benches. They bought the materials and started construction of the first research bench, and the second tier of research bench shortly after. Here, Izumi was able to research all the necessary blueprints to make Pearly's dream a reality. The engineers started building the training turrets on the roofs of the building, and the training could finally begin. After everyone was equipped with backpacks, they bought tons of building materials. They headed back to the Leviathan coast. Pearly was confident that his plan was going to work. They chose a nice, elevated spot near the water, functioning as a natural choke point for anyone wanting to pass, including Leviathans. On the side of the hill, they started the construction of the so-called storm house, after which the builders started the construction of the turrets on the roof. The Leviathans were curious about what was going on. Oh, little did they know. Finally, the building was finished, and the hunt could finally begin. This was the moment Pearly was waiting for. His chance to avenge the deaths of Nat and Stone. His chance to make his family proud. He took off his backpack, making him able to run faster, and he used his crossbow to separate and lure a Leviathan cub from his parent. He kept shooting it to keep its aggro, and he led it to the front of the storm house, where the crew was eagerly waiting on crossbow turrets to start raining destruction on the unknowing Leviathan. Let the slaughter begin. The baby Leviathan kept following Pearly, who was able to dodge the attacks, and he kept running circles so the team could keep shooting at it. Slowly but surely, the animal was taking more and more damage from the crossbow volleys. And after what felt like an eternity, it took a finishing crossbow bolt to the head and buckled under his own hoofs. The animal was on the brink of death, but still breathing. Pearly rushed towards it to take the pearl from its dying body, instantly killing the beast. Finally, after all this time, Pearly held a Leviathan pearl in his hands. He looked at it, and being imagination or not, he saw his parents fakely laugh back at him in the shimmer of the pearl. He knew that he made them proud. And on a side note, the thing is worth 12k. Stonks. But this single victory didn't satisfy Pearly. In fact, it only increased his hunger for blood. A single Leviathan kill doesn't prove that he's the biggest Leviathan slayer of all time. He needed to go bigger. He lured in another Leviathan. This was the parent, saddened by the death of its child. Oh, don't you cry. Soon enough you'll meet again in Leviathan heaven. Just like the one after that, and the one after that. And just after one day, the beach was filled with blood and littered with the giant corpses of the once majestic creatures. Their flesh now rotting in the sun, because we only take the pearls. However, there was still an emptiness inside of Pearly. This was not enough death. This was just the beginning. With their bags filled with the valuable pearls, he ordered his crew to pack up and leave nothing behind. Burdened by the heavy building materials and pearls, they headed back to World's End, and they sold the pearls for a total of 78k. They used this money to recruit even more hunters from the local fishing village, and they researched even more buildings, training everyone up to be a mounted crossbowman, and they headed back to the Leviathan coast, ready to settle there for good. They found a beautiful looking place to settle down a few hundred meters from the previous spot, and they started building a stone mine. This would help start the construction of building materials needed to build the walls. They slowly but surely used all the materials and knowledge they gained to build up the outpost, which only had one goal: leave no single Leviathan alive. At first, the place didn't seem like much, but after the walls were all built, it was ready to serve its purpose. With its walls equipped with a total of 8 mounted crossbows, manned by well-trained crossbow men and women, it was a true sight to behold. And it made hunting Leviathans a breeze. Welcome to Pearl Harbor. Finally, Pearly experienced a sense of satisfaction. Not with the amount of Leviathans they've already killed, no. He was satisfied by the knowledge that hundreds upon hundreds of Leviathans would find their ends here, filling his pockets and the pockets of his crew. Happy end. Well, not if you're a Leviathan. Since you made it this far, why not check out the next video? Thanks for watching. Bye.